I don't want to be too dramatic here with this intro, but I'm just going to say this. Cube will save Magic. And I don't mean that in a open, like, all-encompassing or holistic way. I mean it in a very micro way. Cube will save Magic for a large portion of the people watching this who are fed up, frustrated, or burnt out with Magic. Let's talk about it. This video and most of the content on this channel is brought to you by Genic, who are the best brand of card accessories on the market. The Game Castle is their new take on the sort of like briefcase style carrier. Prof gave it a very solid review. And here's my one, which I love the color scheme for. This has my party box in it. And as you can see, there's separate compartments that you can store separate commander decks in if you want to have like a little commander battle box, but I use it for carrying around the party box at events. It's available in 3 different colors at present, and it's available from all good local retailers. There is a chance that if you watch my content, then your relationship with Magic is a bit scuffed, frivolous, difficult. I came up making Magic gameplay videos back in the day. I've been doing this quite some time now. And when you've been doing this sort of thing for a while, your audience sort of like evolves over time. You keep certain members of the old audience, but you grow and get new ones. And I adapted and evolved to make more talking head commentary and sort of like waxing lyrical videos because those are the ones that people wanted to see. It seems to me that a lot of the viewers from those old gameplay days are the ones that are the most disenfranchised with Magic. And I think disenfranchised is the key word there. They still have a connection to the game, they still remember the game fondly, but it evolved or changed to just not be what they once liked about the game for any number of numerous reasons we'll touch upon gently in this video. But the reason I'm talking about that is that there are people who still watch my content from back in the day, back when I used to be primarily just modern and legacy gameplay, back when that was my absolute main focus, beyond all the other things that encompass Magic, from Commander to the general culture. And over time, those formats have gone into varying stages of decay, shall I say. Modern at times has been very, very boring. Legacy, I've hardly touched myself for quite some time. More so just because I'm busy, more than I think the format is bad, although it has been in a bad spot for a while. As many formats can be, they can be in a bad spot for a while. We sit on the eve of waiting for Wizards of the Coast to act on banning things in maybe Legacy, but also primarily in Standard, with the last Pro Tour being Pro Tour Vivi. Actually, Pro Tour Vivi, it wasn't. It was Pro Tour Corey Steelcutter, but it's funny that Vivi was like the only card from Final Fantasy that saw some play. Some of you would have fell out of love with your favourite formats. Some of you would not have been able to keep up with the deluge of product releases, the sheer quantity of not only individual items coming out, but then those items being full of 300 to 500 cards. Once upon a time, there was only 4 sets a year for Standard. Then we get like a Commander release and a supplemental product like Plane Shift or what was another example of that? Conspiracy? Now we have 6 products going through Standard. Each one of those sets then having a adjacent Commander product as well, making them essentially at least 50% larger than they already would have been under the old system. I've done entire videos talking about how year on year we've had more and more legendary creatures printed. They actually slowed down last year because they realized that it's getting a bit silly. There are many of you watching this who might be from my old content who remember when Magic was a lifestyle hobby, when it was your main hobby and you knew everything that was going on, every card printed, every set released. Nowadays, you can't keep track because of secret layers, and there's just too much product to understand or know. The controlling company of Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, have seen the product to be a thing they can expand to many, many smaller audiences instead of like keeping one entrenched one. Not every product being for you is the sort of mantra that they wheel out every time someone complains that something doesn't fit what they think Magic should be. And sometimes that mantra feels like a shit justification for shit stuff, but other times it's kind of true. Magic is so large and all-encompassing now in terms of how much of your life it can take up if you let it. You simply cannot follow everything. You cannot stay as enfranchised as you once did. And thus you fell out of love with it, or you at least dedicated less time to it, less money to it. You don't open the packs anymore, you don't care about spoiler season, you don't play the formats you used to. But many of you still love Magic. Whether that be the nostalgia you have for a certain era of Magic in terms of formats and sets and gameplay, or the associated sort of gathering that comes with Magic. That time in your life when you had an active local play scene, a competitive circuit, or just a regular casual Friday night pub Magic sort of session. And I see a lot of people. I see the people that used to be part of my extended circles, whether that be the Southampton scene, a lot of them having moved on to Flesh and Blood, the people from Bournemouth, a lot of them having moved on from Magic and card games in general, people move across to Warhammer, that's a really common one with some of the legacy scene from London that I know, they play more competitive Warhammer than they do Magic now. People move on, I guess, but they never really fall out of love with Magic because Magic is the greatest game that's ever been made. I really believe that. So this video is to address that idea that you have fallen out of love with, or love it less, or struggle to even engage with it, that your relationship with Magic is damaged. And I have an answer for that. I have a thing that I think can help you to mold and change the point of contact that you have with Magic. And it can all be held in one of these. Hashtag sponsor. This is a genic Gamecast, so I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. Today's video is primarily about Cube. It's not just exclusively about Cube, so please don't switch off if you don't like limited Magic. I understand that's not a thing for everyone. This is also about old school. It's about pre-modern. It's about Canadian Highlander, and to a much lesser extent, much like everything else in Magic, it is a bit about Commander. In this genic Gamecast, so right now I have a cube of sorts. It is the party box that you might have seen featured on other channels, and I did a video about. It's just hundreds of cards of varying sleeves, and some not even from the game of Magic itself, but it's a custom format that allows people to have fun with Magic in a way that is very different to how they would usually engage with it. It helps to break away from the monotony of constant Commander, but also allows you to engage with Magic when you're no longer into the competitive formats too. The crux of the matter is that I see so many disenfranchised players on my Discord and in my comment section just being angry about Wizards, saying they haven't bought anything for ages, that they're on the proxy train and and absolutely fine. You are annoyed at Wizards of the Coast for one of the many hundreds of controversies over the last several years. Part of that is me reporting on it, right? People come to me to hear me speak truth to power, or at least say the things that a lot of other content creators won't say about the problems that we have in the hobby. And that's the point I'm getting at with this video, is that the way to fix your relationship with Magic is to adjust the contact point. It is not to be shoved right up the arsehole of Magic and be like a fucking suppository, letting it absorb all the nutrients out of your body, allowing it to suck your life dry. Magic should serve you, not the other way around. Repeat with me. I am not a suppository. I am not a suppository. Instead, Magic should be what you need it to be. Now, there are some things that it can't be in that respect. There are some ways that the things I'm about to talk about won't solve. So, for example, the collapse of a lot of organized play, it's come back, but there's still problems. Like you look at the current Pro Tour and the ban lists and the needs for ban rotations and similar. This won't fix those issues specifically. But everything else, a dislike of Universes Beyond, a dislike of regular set releases or 2 regular set releases, the dislike of Commander, the dislike of everything else that's happened to Magic over the last 5 years, some of which, by the way, I really like. Like, the Deluge of product is insane, but it makes it interesting. And Universes Beyond, I love it, but you might not. And the way you cultivate an experience to not engage with those parts of Magic is to look at fan-made formats. That may be Dan, that may be Party Box, that may be old school, that may be pre-modern, but ideally, the one I want to focus on today is Cube. This is Cube Cobra. Cube Cobra is a website where people can upload their cubes for you to playtest. You can literally click a button to start a draft of 15 cards from one pack of a cube and play through a cube draft. But what's a cube? Well, a cube is a custom limited environment in which you pick the cards that are involved in the cube to exist and to live in that cube. And those cards aren't kept after drafting. Instead, you draft, you play the limited environment, and at the end, you shuffle it all back together and put it back into that box, like a self-contained board game experience or adaptation of Magic, but it uses all the rules of Magic. Or it doesn't if you want to adjust them slightly. I'll come to that more in a moment. The reason I think Cube is so important for this cultivation, this honing of the contact point so you aren't just submerged and being sucked dry, is because Cube allows such cultivation of the experience. It's actually bonkers. Maybe you want to play the traditional touchpoint cube that everyone knows about, the vintage cube. I've got one. Hashtag sponsored, it's Game Genic Dungeon time, baby. Inside this dungeon, there are the cube sleeves that Game Genic do as well. This is a 540 card vintage cube with the most powerful cards in all of Magic inside it that allows you to draft a powerful, synergy-focused, limited environment. My vintage cube in particular actually has loads of Universes Beyond stuff in it because I really enjoy the Universes Beyond stuff, but again, you can play without it. There's a whole thing at the moment where, like, powered cube, vintage cube, it uses like the power 9 and the most powerful cards in Magic, and you can peel back and remove those and play or build or cultivate or curate a unpowered cube, a less combo-tastic, less brutal environment where someone doesn't Black Lotus you on turn 1 or whatever. But on top of that, the initiative, this inconspicuous little thing that broke Legacy, this is considered perhaps too good for most unpowered cubes and some vintage cubes, and thus even the mighty LSV himself has a initiative package that he can remove from his vintage cube. So that's the default one that everyone knows about, but Cube is so much more than vintage cube, and that's why I think it can help you to enjoy Magic more than you currently do. Some examples of this that I have built recently and that I'm currently sort of like working on, there's the Milk Cube, which is the mono white cube. It's all the best cards in white to allow you to play in an environment where white is the focus, because it's my favorite color of Magic. Space Cube, I'm currently waiting for Final Fantasy and Edges of Eternity to drop so I can renovate it, but it's a cube where the entire aesthetic principles of the cube is that everything must be space themed. Rube Goldberg machine is to take a lot of game actions and win in unconventional ways. All of these cubes do like Universes Beyond cards, but again, that's a thing that you can remove from your cube environment if you don't want to use it. In many ways, the spark of imagination that made me want to build Rube Goldberg machine is all the commander decks that I've played Nuka-Cola vending machine in, a card that I absolutely love from the Fallout decks. That card literally inspired the creation of an entire cube. And on that note, if you want to build around a certain theme and you think a 100 card commander deck isn't a big enough space to explore the aesthetic gameplay or mechanical identity you're trying to do, imagine doing it for a 360 or 540 or 420 cube. It's like building a commander deck, but that commander deck's actually a board game you can get your friends involved with. And I really mean that. There's so many different ways to approach cube. All of these have a slightly different aesthetic or gameplay sort of focus. There was a cube that I played at CubeCon when I went out there a couple of years ago, which was the Museum of Modern Cube. If you're wondering why I'm sweating so much, by the way, it's because it's 29.6 degrees in my office, and I had to put a t-shirt on to film this because YouTube won't let me show you the top of my hairy pecs. The Museum of Modern looks to be an era of Modern that I am very much fond of and very nostalgic for, to the point that there are 4 copies of things like Snapcaster Mage, for example. So when you are drafting it, you end up with a deck that has multiple Shocklands, Fetch Lands, Snapcaster Mages, Step Lynxes, Aether Vials, Flicker Wisps, you name it, it's in there from that era. The exact era is 2012 to 2018, the year that I played a lot of Modern on this fucking channel. So when you come to sideboard against Burn and you side in Kitchen Finks, you get this, you can smell the grim, I know, you can smell the room in which you played that PTQ. It's very much of that time. At CubeCon, I also got roped into, this isn't my favorite type of cube, but I got asked to fill out the last slot in a Mirage block cube. Maybe you have nostalgia for Mirage, I don't, but that exists. At Cube Slam, an event that I ran recently, here's some photos from that. We ran an event with 32 players with 4 cubes in the morning and 4 cubes in the afternoon. There we had a nostalgia cube that went as far as to adjust the rules of Magic back to the previous Legend rule. That damage had to be redirected to Planeswalkers. It wanted to evoke a certain era of Magic where, or say this, certain eras of Magic all collaboratively together prior to War of the Spark, where things like Morphling was still playable, that Baneslayer Angel was still playable. You can make a cube where it's the current sort of powered environment, removing all Universes Beyond to see what Magic looks like with that. Powered environment without Modern Horizons, you can do that. How about May's Fae Cube, one of the hosts of the Uber Cube podcast, which is a cube podcast that I recommend as they know what they're talking about. I love this podcast. May's Cube is completely based around the concept of the Fae, of fairy tales and fairies once upon a time, baby. It's a wonderful aesthetic exercise that then within that aesthetic you have to look to build and cultivate different archetypes and different ways to play. In many ways, limited Magic, when you draft or play sealed even, or other forms of limited Magic, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you to rotisserie draft a cube just yet, but limited Magic is very pure in what it does. It allows players to come with no deck so they can play in the format without having to already have invested a lot of time and energy into figuring out their deck, which is one of the problems that we have with Canlander or even Commander and getting people into it in the first time round. But also equalize it in skill, not skill, skill's the great divider, I guess, but in money and wallets too. You rock up and you draw from the same card set as everyone else, and thus you aren't hamstrung by your budget. Now, some of the counter criticisms from the comment section I'm already hearing are well, I can't afford to get hold of power, so I can't build my dream vintage cube. Just fucking proxy it. No one cares. The vintage cube I have, I own the vast majority of the cards outside of the Power 9, outside of probably the 15 most expensive cards in the cube that I don't own, and I just proxy it. Reason being that I don't want to go to the pub and play with people that I only just met and let them nick my power. I don't think that would happen that often, but I don't want to run that risk. It also makes people playing with drinks open and stuff on the table a lot easier too. And in some ways, some people see that as quite punk rock. A meta chemist on my Discord spoke about this with me, where he's been frustrated with the rising cost of Magic the Gathering as his main criticism against Wizards of the Coast. And in order to be able to draft over and over and over without buying into a new draft, or even buying into the cards by drafting digitally with Cube Cobra and Draftmancer and Tabletop Simulator, or via proxy cubes, means that it's real punk rock and rebellious that you aren't buying into that if you don't want to. It's taking control of Magic away from the means of production in many ways. If you're playing with proxies, you're not even buying or paying into the secondary market. I don't necessarily agree that all cubes should be proxy. I think there's something wonderful about showing off a collection as well. In another box in amongst all the boxes in my room. There's too many boxes in my room. I'm building a unpowered cube that is just cards from my collection as opposed to proxies that I'll play with people I know, of course. And that's going to have secret lair cards, artist proofs, cards that are miscut, things that are oddities in my collection that I really enjoy, that I want a home for to show off to people. The aesthetics of a cube cultivation can be just that as well. You may want your cards to be signed, to be foiled, to be old border foil. There's all these sort of extra aesthetic layers to cube curation that they don't appeal so much to me, hence why I build cubes on CubeCode all the time and have proxied an entire vintage cube, but it's still a thing that can tick some boxes for you. The real downside to this is that you need to get a pod of players together to draft with. That's the hardest part, and perhaps that's a whole different video talk about how to grow a local cube scene, what the best practices are for that. Normally it's going to be find a space and be consistent about when people can hang out and cube. There's some top tips for you. But ultimately you can even cube draft with a smaller pool. 4 people for a smaller draft. They just launch quick drafts, right? 15 card packs, take 2. Or you could do sealed pools even. If your local group are so commander pilled that they won't try something non-commander, build a commander cube. Something that like a Battle for Baldur's Gate Fortified Cube is something I'm putting together, which is a modified version of the Battle for Baldur's Gate environment that allows you to build commander decks and play in that environment. I love that draft set. Again, a cube could just be one of every card from a draft set to enable you to play that draft set over and over and over again without having to buy into new boxes. Brawl cube, like Pastagetti. Shout out to Pasta on my Discord. They have this wonderful cube that has all of the Gavin Verhey's unknown event cards in it, the little playtest cards that look like this, and that is a brawl cube. You start on a higher life, so I think it's 25, and you have a commander and you play 1v1 games but with a commander, and thus it helps commander players to try and get more into it again. And it might be that you think limited magic sucks and you're sat here thinking, shut the fuck up, Vince, I hate drafting. But listen to this, okay? Sometimes I dislike drafting, especially in the older days of Magic. I like it more now because all the cards do so much. But once upon a time, the majority of cards in a pack just fucking sucked. And Magic's at its coolest when you're playing with either the most powerful or the most interesting of Magic cards, right? Those two categories aren't always the same. And thus, in a cube environment, you're playing limited, but without all the shit. You're playing a cultivated environment with archetypes that have been painstakingly crafted by the curator or the owner of the cube, and also you're not having to play shitty draft chaff filler unless that's part of the cube's identity. And think of it this way, right? You are a fan of deck building. You spend all your time just brewing decks in Commander over and over and over. You're always on Moxfield just bashing out decks. The draft part of Cube is perhaps the most fun part of it, because that is where you get to do this on the fly in an environment that's both social, because you're talking to people around you, but also social in the sense that you have to read cues and signals from the table around you. Are no red cards coming to you? That might mean the 2 seats to your right are all in red, and thus that might affect your drafting experience. But on top of all that, you'll find cards that you've never seen before, things you need to read for a second time, that then they spark inspiration and get you on this path of building something new and fresh and original. It's that deck building iterative process, but in some ways with restrictions, because you're not in the entire pool of Magic, but those restrictions breed the creativity. If you are a fan of Slay the Spire, or any deck building video game that has come from that genre that Slay the Spire has popularized, Slay the Spire is the fucking best, right? Then you owe it to yourself to play Cube, because Cube is just that. Cube is this like deck building exercise through to a draft in 3 rounds, and when you're done, you shuffle up and you can play again next time, or twice in the same day if you've got a lot of spare time. It equalizes, it brings creativity, and it allows you to customize and cultivate the environment in which you want to play. Back in October of 23, I tweeted this: if you really want to cultivate a play experience that achieves aesthetic, mechanical, and nostalgic goals, you should consider building a cube to play. It's one of the best ways to pick up what you like about Magic the most and share it with people. And that spawned someone asking, can I make a cube of all Ornithopters? To which Andy Mangold said, yes, you can. And they made the 100 Ornithopter Cube. That's now featured in an entire Ristic Studies video. I'm not trying to take credit for it, but what I'm saying is that is a natural evolution of that idea. It's just a really organic thing of like, I can try and do this thing. Yes, I can. Because Magic is fantastic, and I can do that independent of all the problems and issues I might have with any mother company or any burnout that I feel with the sheer volume of product, or the absurd growing cost of just getting hold of product. One of the, I guess, biggest threats to most people's enjoyment of just playing the fucking game. Some people will update their cubes every single set because that brings them joy. I personally, I'm gonna wait 3, 4, 5, 6 sets sometimes because I cannot be fucked to keep up with that. So instead of allowing your relationship with a company doing things that you don't agree with about a game that you love ruin your relationship with that game that you love, instead cultivate. So they were cultivate perhaps too much. Forge, mold the experience to be exactly what you want. And that is done through player-created, grassroots, community-led created formats. and primarily Cube, because Cube is just 26,000 formats in a trench coat. And if you're gonna build a cube, you can fit it all in the game genic, baby. I'm not joking. The game castle is fantastic. This is holding my party cube at the moment, my party box, if you will. The next one is going to be holding one of my other cubes that I'm putting together. And if you want to see more events from me, like Cube Slam, we will be running another Cube Slam with much more players and more cubes involved. Keep an eye out on my socials and on YouTube, where I will advertise that. And if you want to get involved with sort of digital cube drafting via Draftmaster, via Cube Cobra, and via Tabletop Simulator, get involved with my Discord server. We've been running semi-regular cube nights. I need to really push and emphasize this for people. Hopefully this video will kickstart that a little bit, but it's a great way to play with people all over the world and enjoy a draft environment. We've done nights where we've just drafted 3 cubes and played no games, because the drafting is so much of the fun part. You can join my Patreon via the link in the description below. Get involved there, check out the Cube Night room, ping me in there, and we will try and get a Cube Night set up. Come and get involved and just be the change you want to see in Magic. Cube will save Magic. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.